The Seahawks are officially eliminated from the playoffs. Uh, in a year where they might go 10-7, it might be 9-8, kind of plateauing that record every single year, it feels like. But officially eliminated, at least a 10-win season's on the line next week. I guess that's a positive.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. If you told me we got 10 wins, if we beat the Rams, obviously, if we get 10 wins and we are eliminated from the playoffs, I would have been really shocked. And it is shocking. 10 wins usually gets you into the playoffs in this 17 game NFL season. But it looks like this year's that's not the case because there's been so many. I mean, the records, if you go look at them, there's so many really bad teams and a lot of pretty good teams.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about a team that had some really good wins, but had some really bad losses. And 10 wins usually you would feel like you said, gets you in to
Yeah.
a playoff if they do beat the Rams. But unfortunately this year, and unfortunately for first year head coach Mike McDonald, it is not the case, despite honestly a pretty solid first year. But we'll talk about it after I hit the intro.
All right.
You're listening to the Sports on Tap Seattle podcast. I'm Sammy, and with me, as always, is my older brother, George.
Your favorite place to be a fan of Seattle sports. Now let's get this party started.
No party today, George.
No, yeah, it is disappointing missing the playoffs, right? But I mean, like we said in the intro, 10 win season, if we can get that, it's really, you can't go home and be like, man, I'm so disappointed in this team because it looks like 11 wins was what's going to take to make the playoffs, which is pretty ridiculous if in the grand scheme of things, especially when you go see other divisions that are, not as good as the NFC West. And maybe if you're in the South, you make the playoffs. It's just a little bit disappointing, but there's a lot of good to take out of the season, but no good to take out of that Bears game because that was 3 hours of wasted time.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some, good moments. Like, obviously, the way that they competed against a Vikings team who's obviously very, very good um, was encouraging, right? They beat
Mhm.
teams like Atlanta. That was pretty encouraging. Now you look back, a win against a team like the Broncos is pretty encouraging. Um, Going to overtime with the Rams was encouraging. But then you have those moments with this team
Mhm.
where 6-3 against the Bears, which was not very boring. At least they won. But then you
Yeah.
also lose to the Giants at home. Stuff like that is really where the season comes down to, is having those duds of games. And I don't necessarily think there's anyone specific to, place blame on. I feel like that's the one thing that is interesting about sports, and I guess interesting about, let's say, Seahawks fans. I feel like everyone's trying to find the blame right now, right? Mike McDonald is not good enough, or is Geno Smith the problem, this or that. When in reality, if you end up winning 10 games, it wasn't a bad season. There's not much blame. I think, if anything, I would say personally, if we had a better offensive line, we might be an 11-win team. That would probably be my one
Yeah,
thing.
I mean that's fair, but like if you also, we're 2 plays away from also being, instead of a 10 win, if we beat the Rams, a 10-win team, being a 12-win team. The one play in overtime against the Rams that resulted in a touchdown, the blocked field goal against the Giants, like it goes to show like these individual moments are very, very key in the grand scheme of things. I mean, the blocked field goal felt big when it happened, but now looking back at it, that's the difference between us playing for a playoff spot right now and us playing a meaningless game in a week 18 filled with meaningless games.
Yeah. I mean, outside of, I think everyone's clinched in the NFC except for the Falcons and Tampa Bay. That's
Yep.
like if Tampa wins, though, then the Falcons game is meaningless. But that's pretty much like all we
Or
got
is
on
it the
that side. And
opposite?
then,
Or is it the opposite way around? Are they one game ahead of
well, I
them?
mean,
Yeah, it
they're one
doesn't
game
matter
ahead
then.
of them.
Oh, they are
So,
one game ahead. Oh yeah,
yeah.
because yeah.
Or if Atlanta loses, the Tampa Bay game's useless. Either or.
Okay,
But
that makes sense.
yeah, like, and I think to your point, just like I was saying, is like, we all, I feel like if you go through Twitter, there's a lot of blame game, but there are moments, if you just had a moment or two go your way. We're talking about a team that's already clinched the playoffs, already clinched the NFC West. So it's not like, I don't think we have so many glaring issues that need to be like finger pointed at, right? Like, oh,
Hmm.
Geno's the issue, or Mike McDonald's not that good of a coach, or this. And when we really look at it, we were a
Yeah.
couple plays away from already winning the NFC West, like you said. So I don't know if we need to be going down that road right now of like, who do we replace at quarterback? Who do we let go here or there? Obviously, there's always personnel moves, but I don't think the finger pointing at a specific player right now is really the solution. I just think, if anything, as a unit, they got to figure out what to do at the offensive line, find a way to pick up a piece here or there, make it a
Yeah.
little bit better. And then when you're in a second year head coach, it's probably going to fix up a couple little things that he was learning on the go with. And all of a sudden, you could have been a 11 or 12 win team.
Yeah, I mean, well said. There's not much you can say there. Of course, I mean, like you said, you can always look at ways to improve the team. Maybe the quarterback position is a position we want to improve. That's the hardest position also to improve because there's not like 50 good quarterbacks that you can go out and get. So then you go obviously to the next glaring issue, which is the offensive line. And you say, okay, well, we got to build that. So it doesn't really matter if we have a quarterback because if he's behind this horrible offensive line, he's not going to do anything anyway. So yeah, there's a couple little things there. I know you've seen a lot of people want to blame Ryan Grubb. No, he's fine. We put up a lot of points and a lot of yardage this year, but once again, if you don't have an offensive line, you can't really protect your quarterback or get a good run game. So yeah, I think that's the only thing you can really fix. Mike McDonald's put his finishing touches on the defense next year, and I think hopefully that we just see an improvement on the defense and the offensive line, and then you say, okay, we play a second place schedule instead of a first place schedule. Maybe we can take advantage of that, win some games. And then all of a sudden you are talking about a season where maybe next year we win 11, 12 games and you're a playoff team. Or maybe you win 10 games, but 10 games this next year might actually win you the division. Because usually 10 games may not win you a division for sure, but at least get you a wild card berth in 80% of years.
That's the thing. I mean, we're all looking at, oh, it sucks. We're out of the playoffs. But to your point, there is a situation where most seasons this gets you in, right? And
Right.
so the last 9 wins hasn't done it, but usually it does. And that's,
That's saying if you
yeah,
beat the Rams, but yeah, it
yeah.
gets you
But I
10 games.
mean, 9 wins got us in 2022, the last time we made the playoffs. There's been other times that 9 wins gets you into the playoffs, right? So
Mhm.
it's not. I don't think this 9 win season is nothing that we need to ride home about, right? And say
Mhm.
like, oh, we're so pumped we got 9 wins if we end up with 9. But for a first year head coach who's putting some finishing touches already on the defense that's getting better, in a situation where they I don't know. He inherited essentially a back-to-back 9 and 18, right? So if you can get
Yeah.
10 wins and you already have an improvement first year, that is a plus side, right? There is some plus to it, and it's not as negative, I think, as some are making it.
Yeah, I'm pretty I'm not confused, I don't want to say, but I'm pretty shocked about the negative sentiment on this team. Maybe it's because that game against the Bears was 6-3 and is ugly, and we have that like back in the back of our mind. But at the end of the day, I'd rather win 6-3 than lose 31-26.
Yep.
So I mean, I think the fans are disappointed, obviously, and we should be because we missed the playoffs, and that's something we all want to do and want to watch our team play in the playoffs and do more. But the reality is, if you tell me we beat the Rams, which I think we're favorites in the game because I think the Rams are sitting everyone since it's they're clinched. And we beat the Rams and we go 10-7. And I look at that. If you told me at the beginning of the year we are going to go 10-7, I would have been pretty pumped about going 10-7. I would have probably thought it made us the playoffs, but it didn't. And that's not something we could control what other teams do. We can only control ourselves. But yeah, there's some parts of the season that do sting. Like we said, the Giants missed field goal, the Vikings driving down the field 2 weeks ago to win the game.
The
And
Rams
the
touchdown in
Rams
overtime.
in the Rams touchdown in overtime. Those are like three. If one of those three went our way, we'd be a playoff team.
Yeah, if literally one of those three went our way, we're talking about a team that's already won 10 games and probably already clinched. Like if that Rams one went our way, we're talking about a team that clinched the division
Yeah.
already. So, I mean, they say it's a game of inches, right? So obviously every play matters and
Yes.
every yard matters. So that was very clear this year that you can't just There's no game where it's just like, oh, it's okay, we lost. Like that Giants loss came back to bite us. The Rams touchdown in overtime came back to bite us. The not finishing the game against Minnesota came back to bite us. But I did see this graphic on Twitter, and it's a good sign moving forward, which is
Mhm.
Seahawks defensive ranks the past 4 seasons. Between 2021 and 2023, the last 3 years with Pete Carroll, we were 28th in passing yards per game on defense, 32nd in total yards per game allowed, and 30th in third down
Oof.
percentage. Pete Carroll was supposed to be a defensive guru himself. This year, so far, with 1 week to go, we're first in passing yards per game allowed. So the best team. Second in total yards per game allowed, and fourth in third down percentage converted as a defense. So, sure, we might not make the playoffs. We might be at 9 to 10 wins, just like we've been for the last 3, 4 years. But we're looking at a team where the defense is turned around the last 3 years as a bottom 5 defense to a top 5 defense.
Right.
If you can shore up the offensive line, make the right decisions there, and just make the right decision at quarterback, whether that's keep Geno Smith and make sure the offensive line is good, whether that's move off of Geno Smith. I don't know what they're planning on doing. If you improve that offense or that offensive line by 10%, 15%, that might be the difference for those 2 or 3 games we lose.
Right.
And you're a 10, 11 win team.
Yeah.
And that's the reality. People want to blame Geno Smith. Okay, go get Sam Darnold if the Vikings don't sign him. Well, Sam Darnold's in a great scenario right now. You've seen Sam Darnold when he's been in crappy situations. He's been bad. When he's in a good situation, getting protected, great weapons, good coaching staff, good defense, they're a 12, 13 win team. So I feel like regardless, defense has figured it out, but offense, if you're not going to protect the quarterback, regardless of it being Geno Smith or Sam Howell or Sam Darnold, or you go draft Jalen Milroe or whoever, you got to figure out the offensive line. I think that's kind of I'm not pointing fingers at it because I think they inherited a bad offensive line,
Right.
obviously. I'm just saying that's probably when I see how good the defense has figured it out, when I know that Geno Smith, if he's protected, is a pretty decent quarterback, and we have the weapons, and we have running backs. I mean, even with Kenneth Walker's out, Zach Charbonnet is a phenomenal. He could be a number one for some teams. The offensive line, I guess, is the topic of discussion moving
Right.
forward for the 10th year in a row since we won a Super Bowl. Got to fix that because I think personally, you can ride with Geno Smith for another 2 years if that offensive line.
Yeah, you could ride with Geno Smith. You can do a lot better than Geno Smith. You could also do a lot worse than Geno Smith. That's the best way to look at Geno Smith. I'm not saying he is the answer to all problems, but he's also not all the problems. So with him, he's an interesting situation because he's probably somewhere between the 12th to 20th best quarterback in the NFL, maybe 14th to 20. It's hard to put a number. I'm not going to go down the whole entire list here, but you could do a lot worse. I mean, we saw Sam Howell come in for a little bit, and he was a starter for a full season last year in Washington. You also can't have Sam Howell as your starting quarterback. And we've seen teams that struggle. Look at the Giants. They went and got Daniel Jones in the first round, thought he was the future. He's now off the team. Yeah, and paid him. So at the end of the day, it's not like there's like 55 quarterbacks standing there ready to take over a team and lead you to a Super Bowl. So if you have a quarterback that's a decent enough starter, you have to sit with them for a little bit. Maybe you go draft someone you believe in. Also, it's a weak quarterback class. We're not picking in the top 10, so that doesn't help either. So it's not like you have all these solutions at quarterback walking around and you're ready just to go sign them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go through the whole list, but I'm looking at teams that are not doing well, right? The 4-12 Jets. They're not happy with having Aaron Rodgers right now.
No.
The Patriots. Now, Drake has showed promise, but I think it's a good proof of the pudding that just having even a decent rookie, if the rest of the team's not set up right, they've lost 6 straight. They've won 3 games. The Browns made the wrong decision by moving off Baker and going and paying Deshaun Watson 3 wins. The Titans 3 wins. The Jags 4 wins. The Colts. Okay, let's move. Let's go and get a rookie quarterback. Move up. See what we can get. 7-9, and the Raiders 4-12. There's a lot of teams. The Giants, the Bears. The
Yeah.
Panthers, like the Saints were like, oh, let's go. Or even the Falcons, let's go get Kirk Cousins and draft a quarterback, spend all this money, going to end the year probably 8-9 or 9-8 and miss the playoffs potentially. So
Yeah. So
there's not big solutions everywhere.
yeah, if there were, then obviously every team would have a great quarterback that can go out there and sling the ball and win you some games. But there's like a handful of them only. So it's not like if one becomes available and you want to go get him, sure. But otherwise, it's just not. What are you going to do? You're going to ride with Geno Smith. So, and that's fine. If he's good enough to win 9 games, and maybe 10 games.
Yep.
And give him a good and give him a good offensive line. He might win 11 or 12.
Yeah, and you might make a run in the playoffs. Like I think it gives me somewhat. I think he's a better quarterback than Geno Smith, but it gives me somewhat those like Jared Goff type of vibes, right? Like I think if Jared Goff was on the Browns, he'd be struggling right now.
Yeah, but you right situation, right coach, right
Yeah.
everything. You do well. Now Geno needs to work on not throwing horrible passes in the red zone. But I don't know how you fix that other than being careful. But maybe he needs to be a little bit careful with the ball. Maybe watch some film. I'm not saying he doesn't watch film, but maybe watch film on what he's doing in the red zone, and make
Get
some
to the
corrections.
film room, Gino.
Yeah, I mean, is there something going on there? Like, and he can fix that. That's if that. God, I don't know if it's fixable or not. I feel like gunslingers are gunslingers no matter what, and that's what makes them good. But he needs to fix that. And I think next year we should have a much better opportunity to make the playoffs. Only issue is our division 49ers will be healthier. The Rams, the good news is they'll be older with Matt Stafford. And Arizona, it just seems like they're going to struggle for a little bit. I don't know if they have the right quarterback / head coach.
Yeah, I mean they're in a decent. I feel like they're better than they have their flashes, right? But
Yeah.
to your point, I feel like Arizona could be the Seahawks and have a 9 or 10 win season, or they're going to have the season they have this year, which they might win 8 games if they win next week. For a bad year, 8 wins is okay. They're not a 3-12 team. And the 49ers are a 6-win team despite disaster. So the whole division, even let's say the Cardinals are the worst team, because I'm giving the 49ers grace on the injuries and just whatever, right? Like, let's say the Cardinals are your worst team in the division, even if it's not by record, they still might be an 8-9 team to end the season as your worst team.
Right.
Every other division in the NFC, the Giants, there's a 3-win team in the East, the Giants. There's a 7-win team in the Cowboys. There's a 4-win team in the Bears in the North. There's a 4 and 5-win team in the NFC South. Our worst team is the 6-9 49ers right now, who were just decimated by injuries and just a bad year. If it wasn't for their injuries, we're talking about a division that probably had all teams at 7 or 8 wins and up. So
yeah,
it's not a cakewalk of a division.
No, it's not. And one thing I do want to point out here, as we're getting close to the end, is, guys, Sammy just said about 4-win teams, 3-win teams, 4-win. We're lucky as Seahawks fans. We do not have many seasons like that, and I don't remember one in a long time. So, being a team of stability, a franchise of stability, even the Patriots, who are, the most successful franchise of the 2000s, they're struggling with 3-win seasons and 4-win seasons the last few years. So we should be pretty happy that at least, we are not a disaster of a franchise.
Yeah, we have not had our worst post Mike Holmgren era, which I don't even mind that he had a bad year to end it, because he went like 10 wins, 9 wins, 13 wins, 9 wins, 10 wins. And they had a bad year, 4-12. They moved off of him in 2008. 2009, 5-win season with Mora. Since then, our worst years have been 7-win years from 2010 and up. So 15 straight years of never really being bad. I mean, like, our worst years was 7-9, made the playoffs, right? Like, first year of Pete Carroll, 7-9 the next year, then a Super Bowl run for multiple years, and then a 7-10 year in 2001. But not an awful team. Like, you still had Bobby Wagner and Russell Wilson. It was a decent year for a 7-win team, and it wasn't great, but they weren't a dumpster fire, right?
Right.
So
and that's important.
We're lucky.
That's important. That's important.
Yeah.
Like, it shows stability of a franchise. So, excuse me, I am unhappy we missed the playoffs, but hey, it wasn't a bad season.
No, not a disaster, not a bad season, and we have a chance to finish it off on the right note. You beat the Rams, even if they're not playing anyone. At least it ends you at a 10-win season, winning your last game. Defense is getting better. Hopefully, Gino has a good game, and you kind of just get some momentum the next year. Hey, first year head coach, 10 wins. Didn't go exactly as planned, but not a bad start to a new
Exactly.
era of Seahawks football.
Yeah, this is all positivity here at this podcast today.
Yeah, but fix the offensive line.
Yeah, that too.
That's I will continue to
Make
be
that
on the board of
make it their New Year's resolution.
fix your O line because we need it. That's a fact.
110%.
Yeah, that biggest red flag there. So let's see what happens. I hope we beat the Rams just to get that 10-win season, and we'll be talking about it next week. We'll see. Let's finish off this year right. We'll probably get into some draft stuff, some future stuff. See if the Seahawks make any personnel changes. Those usually happen right after the season. Was it Black Monday they call it?
Yeah, Black Monday.
Yeah, like you never know. I don't know if the Seahawks are going to, but there's always something, right? There's always the offensive line coach is. I don't think they're going to get rid of Scott Huff, but you know my point. Like there'll be some structuring things,
Exactly.
or some player things we start hearing, like, oh, maybe they're going to trade this guy or whatever. So we'll get into all that. Hopefully, finish off the season on a good note. And you got anything else?
No, that's it, man.
All right. Well, unfortunately, no playoffs, but here we are. Let's go get 10 wins, make it a memorable year of some sort, and we'll be back next time. George, you know what we like to say.
Hey, thanks for stopping by.
See you next time.
You're listening to the Sports on Tap Seattle podcast. I'm Sammy, and with me, as always, is my older brother, George.
Your favorite place to be a fan of Seattle sports.